Okay, hey, back in, still in my shirt, well, back in my corner here, because I got to stop home quickly between two different work things today. And I did listen to, didn't get to watch much of this stream for WWDC, and I just wanted a quick react, which is, this was a WWDC keynote. It's exactly what it should be. It's all about software, and there's some pretty cool things. There's a few that'll be kind of instantly or very quickly usable when these OSs come out, and a lot that are like, oh, for developers, because obviously that's what it's for. I think the annual update cycle is starting to really drag, that there's just not that much to add every year to call it a new release. And a lot of these things, I guess it's good that they bundle it all together, but you really could put out in, iOS 14.2 could add this one, and iPadOS 14.5 could add that one. But this model is fine, and it doesn't really matter because it's all free. So it would be frustrating if these were releases you had to pay for, like in the old days, and there was these minor feature bumps and things, and it was every year. You'd want to wait more in between. So anyway, that's really, old school back in the day kind of takes to even think about it that way. But yeah, no hardware, which makes sense. The only times there's really been hardware at WWDC has been announcements that serious pro or more serious pro stuff was coming before the end of the year. And so the only reason I really bought into there being a potential for a release or an announcement, there was no chance of a release at this event, was that we're talking about new pro stuff. It didn't happen because MacBook Pros aren't really pro stuff, if we're really honest. They're just the mainstream laptops. I know they sell more Airs, but geez, the Pro's the mainstream. Anywho, not the point. My quick reaction is that it's hilarious how everyone got convinced that there definitely would be, it could be next week or 3 weeks from now or whatever, And it's possible it was planned, and the supply constraints for a 14-inch, with the mini LED, like all the conflicting rumors of does it have mini LED, doesn't it, being within weeks of the so-called, the supposed announcement made it pretty clear it wasn't coming. But it's hard not to believe because we're all waiting for this stuff. And, this is why Apple gave themselves 2 years to transition, and depending on how you read it, I don't think they're 1 year in. I think they're, I think they're 8 months in, or not even really, 7 months in. I think it's November 17th or whatever the first day they sold an M1 Mac. That's the clock on 2 years. So I think you have until late 2022 to finish, and I think they gave themselves that much runway because they want to make sure they get it done. It's like how the Intel transition from PowerPC was up to 2 years and really didn't take anywhere close to it. It was 18 months from announcement and like barely a year from the first Intel Macs. But there was no crazy supply chain issues. There's no worldwide meltdown of supply chains. So I think we're lucky to get what we have in as much stock as we have it. And that the 2 year announcement is to take a 12 to 15 month transition and be able to absorb any hiccups, because they didn't have the products ready. They just said, we think we're a year away from having them all ready, so let's give ourselves 2 years to get it out. It's going to leave some Intel stuff long in the tooth for a long time, but not that much longer. I do fully expect, and I fully expect these MacBook Pros and the bigger, beefier Mac Mini or whatever, everything except the true Mac Pro probably, still by the end of the year. And you're probably not going to redesign some of the ones that are already out there, like the base Mini and obviously the iMac in there. And I don't know if we'll get the big iMac or when, but the two MacBook Pros and the bigger, beefier Mac Mini should absolutely still be this year. And I think that's more clear by not releasing them now. It's even more clear that they're all going to be based on the A15/M2 core design. That's the only thing that ever made any sense. And now it's very obvious, because now we're getting to the point where if they're not even announced now, the soonest these things are shipping is basically in 6 or more weeks. And that would require, and that's not happening because you probably just announced it today, if you were. Though it was a long, it was an hour and a half plus kind of thing. So maybe you wait 2 weeks and do it, but it's just very silly to assume these are coming before, the September type window when the core design will be updated. And the M1 can't go away. It's still going to stay in the iMac and the MacBook Air, but you need your Pro stuff to be on that next level. And it's going to stay in the base Mac Mini for at least another year. But you need an M2 and you need an X Factor chip, the 10, 12, whatever core version. It would be very, very silly to keep like the M1 around for like 2 or 3 years. And say, well, we did M1 and then we did the MX or M1X or whatever, because we know that the iPad, iPhone, the A series chips will iterate every year. And if you look at how fast they iterate, you're going to end up with, if you kept that M1 on sale for very long, you'd end up with an base, iPhone 14 that is as fast as the still on sale MacBook Air. And that doesn't make sense. So we know that they're going to be iterating. They have to be. It doesn't mean there won't be stuff that hangs out for longer. Look at how old the chips in like a base iPad can end up. But they will, and like a base Apple TV. Those can be old chips. But I do believe these Mac things will iterate, and there'll be a couple a year. And they're just easy bumps, and we'll see. But anyway, that's my reaction. Is software? It's software stuff. I don't write software, so seems like it'll be cool 6 months from now when we start seeing any of the things. And cool, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. Nothing that will change your life, really. And yes, I'm just kind of gloating over the lack of hardware, because it was illogical that it was coming, even with the volume of it's coming. So even though I kind of bought in, it's like, I bet they announce it because everyone says they're going to announce it. I knew it wouldn't be for sale, and I'm just mostly gloating about all the people who are so convinced that they've got to, make good on bets. Because I thought the best case was it would be for sale in, hey, we'll sell this to you in August. And just like a teaser, which doesn't make a lot of sense for the 14-inch because they're still selling 2 13-inch MacBook Pros and 2 13-inch M1 laptops. There's no reason to Osborne yourself on those. The only one you would Osborne yourself on is the 16-inch, and that's not the one that was rumored for this week. So unless they were stockpiled, ready to go for sale tomorrow, which we knew they weren't because nothing that's currently out there is running out of stock or having issues. They're running out of stock and just barely keeping up because of supply constraints, but they're not running out of stock in the discontinuation sense. In the it's the lead time or the stock in your store that's weak, not there won't be another one. It's not like the HomePod, where the original HomePod is becoming impossible to find because it's been discontinued and they're just letting the stock sell out, which, that's truly its whole life. I've heard that it's the original run never sold out. So they're just trying to unload as many of the ones they built before they even released it. Anyway, point is, WWDC keynote happened. Cool stuff. It is cool, but it's nothing like last year. And you got to remember that things like last year happen, every decade or so, maybe 5 years, you get something relatively major. Not just, the operating systems have a few more features. So anyway, have a great day. I'm going back to work.